Hi dear students, welcome to Teacher at Home. Today class we are going to learn the chapter 20 Locomotion and Movement. Movement is one of the significant features of living beings. Animals and plants exhibit a wide range of movements. Streaming of protoplasm in the unicellular organisms like amoeba is a simple form of movement. Most of cilia, flagella and tentacles are shown by many organisms. Human beings can move limbs, jaws, eyelids, tongue, etc. Some of the movements result in a change of place of location. Such voluntary movements are called locomotion. Walking, running, climbing, flying, swimming are all some forms of locomotory movements. Locomotory structures need not to be different from those affecting other type of movements. For example, in paramecium, cilia helps in the movement of food through cytopharynx and in locomotion as well. Hydra can use the tentacles for capturing its prey and also use them for locomotion. We use limbs to change in body postures and location as well. The above observation suggests that movements and locomotion cannot be studied separately. The two may be linked by stating that all locomotions are movements, but all movements are not locomotions. Method of locomotion performed by animals vary with their habitats and the demand of the situation. However, locomotion is generally for search of food, shelter, mates, suitable breeding grounds, favorable climatic conditions, or to escape from enemies and predators. Types of movement. Cells of the human body exhibit three main types of movement, namely amoeboid, ciliary, and muscular. Some specialized cells in our body, like macrophages and leukocytes in blood, exhibit amoeboid movement. It is affected by pseudopodia formed by the streaming of protoplasm, as in amoeba. Cytoskeletal elements like microfilaments are also involved in amoeboid movement. Ciliary movement occurs in most of our internal tubular organs, which are lined by ciliated epithelium. The coordinated movements of cilia in the trachea help us in removing dust particles, some of the foreign substances, inhaled along with atmospheric air. Passage of ova through the female reproductive tract is also facilitated by the ciliary movement. Movement of our limbs, jaws, tongue, etc. require muscular movement. The contractile property of muscles are effectively used for locomotion, other movements by human beings and majority of multicellular organisms. Locomotion requires a perfect coordinated activity of muscular, skeletal and neural system. In this chapter, you will learn about the type of muscles, the structure, mechanism of the contraction, important aspects of the skeletal system. Muscle, you have studied in chapter 8, the cilia and flagella are the outgrowth of the cell membrane. Flagellar movement helps in the swimming of spermatozoa, maintenance of water current in the canal system of sponges and in location of protozoans like euglena. Muscle is a specialized tissue of mesodermal origin. About 40 to 80% of the body weight of the human adult is contributed by muscles. They have special properties like excitability, contractility, extensibility, and elasticity. Muscles have been classified using different criteria, namely location, appearance, and nature of regulation of their activities. Based on the location, three types of muscles are identified: skeletal, visceral, and cardiac. Skeletal muscles are closely associated with the skeletal components of the body. They have a stripped appearance under the microscope and hence are called striated muscles. All their activities are under the voluntary control of the nervous system. They are known as the voluntary muscles too. They are primarily involved in locomotory actions and changes of body's postures. Visceral muscles are located in the inner walls or hollow visceral organs of the body, like the alimentary canal, reproductive tract, etc. They do not exhibit any striations and are smooth in appearance. Hence, they are called smooth muscles. The activities are not under the voluntary control of the nervous system and are therefore known as involuntary muscles. They assist, for example, in the transportation of food through the digestive tract and gametes through the genital tract. As the name suggests, cardiac muscles are the muscles of heart. Many cardiac muscles assemble in a branching pattern to form a cardiac muscle. Based on appearance, cardiac muscles are striated. They are involuntary in nature as the nervous system does not control their activities directly. Let us examine a skeletal muscle in detail. to understand the structure and mechanism of contraction. Each organized skeletal muscle in our body is made of number of muscle bundles or fascicles held together by a common collagenous connective tissue layer called fascia. Each muscle bundle contains a number of muscle fibers. Each muscle fiber is lined by the plasma membrane called sarcolemma enclosing the sarcoplasm. Muscle fiber is a syntium as the sarcoplasm contains many nuclei. Endoplasmic reticulum, that is sarcoplasmic reticulum of the muscle fiber, is the storehouse of calcium ions. A characteristic feature of the muscle fiber is the presence of large number of parallelly arranged filaments in the sarcoplasm called myofilaments or myofibrils. Each myofibril has alternate dark and light bands on it. A detailed study of the myofibril has established that the striated appearance is due to the distribution pattern of two important proteins, actin and myosin. The light band contains actin and is called I band or isotropic band, whereas the dark band called A or anisotropic band contains myosin. Both the proteins are arranged as rod-like structures parallel to each other and also to the longitudinal axis of the myofibril. Actin filaments are thinner as compared to the myosin filaments, hence they are commonly called thin and thick filaments respectively. In the center of each I band is an elastic fiber called Z line which bisects it. The thin filaments are firmly attached to the Z line. The thick filaments in the A band are also held together in the middle of this band by a thin fibrous membrane called the M line. The A and I bands are arranged alternately throughout the length of the myofibrils. The portion of the myofibril between two successive Z line is considered as a functional unit of contraction and is called the sarcomere. In a resting state, the edges of thin filament on each side of the thick filament partially overlap the free ends of the thick filaments, leaving the central part of the thick filament. This central part of the thick filament not overlapped by thin filament, it is called the H-zone. Structure of contractile proteins. Each actin filament it is made up of F-actin helically wound to each other. Each F-actin is a polymer of monomeric G-actin. Two filaments of another protein, tropomyosin, also run close to the F-actin throughout its length. A complex protein troponin is distributed at regular intervals on the tropomyosin. The resting state of a subunit of troponin, marks the active binding sites for myosin on the actin filaments. Each myosin filament is also a polymerized protein. Many monomeric proteins called meromyosins constitute one thick filament. Each meromyosin has two important parts, a globular head with a short arm and a tail, the former being called the heavy meromyosin and the latter the light meromyosin LMM. The HMM component, the head and short arm, project outwards at regular distance and angle from each other from the surface of polymerized myosin filament. It is known as cross arm. The globular head is an active ATPase enzyme and has binding sites for ATP and active sites for actin. Mechanism of muscle contraction. Mechanism of muscle contraction is best explained by the sliding filament theory, which states that contraction of a muscle fiber takes place by the sliding of the thin filament over the thick filament. Muscle contraction is initiated by a signal sent by the central nervous system via the motor neuron. A motor neuron along with the muscle fibers connected to it constitutes a motor unit. The junction between the motor unit and the sarcolemma of the muscle fiber is called the neuromuscular junction or motor end plate. A neural signal reaching its junction releases a neurotransmitter, that is the acetylcholine, which generates an action potential in the sarcolemma. This spreads through the muscle fiber and causes the release of calcium ions into the sarcoplasm. Increase in calcium level lead to the binding of calcium with a subunit of troponin on actin filaments and thereby remove the masking of active sites of troponin using the energy from ATP hydrolysis. Myosin head now binds to the exposed active sites of actin to form a cross bridge. This pulls the attacked actin filaments towards the center of A band. Z line attached to the actins are also pulled towards inwards, thereby causing a shortening of the sarcomere, that is contraction. It is clear from the above steps that during shortening of the muscle contraction, the I band get reduced. whereas A band retain their length. The myosin releasing the ADP and PI goes back to the relaxed state. A new ATP binds and the cross bridge is broken. ATP it is again hydrolyzed by the myosin head and the cycle of cross bridge formation and breakage is repeated causing further sliding. The process continues till the calcium ions are pumped back to the sarcoplasmic cisternae, resulting in the masking of actin filaments. This causes the return of said line back to the original position, that is relaxation. Reaction time of the fibers can vary in different muscles. Repeated activation of the muscle can lead to the accumulation of lactic acid due to anaerobic breakdown of glycogen in them causing fatigue. Muscles contain a red-colored oxygen-storing pigment called myoglobin. Myoglobin content it is high in some of the muscles which gives a reddish appearance. Such muscles are called the red fibers. These muscles also contain plenty of mitochondria which can utilize the large amount of oxygen stored in them for ATP production. These muscles therefore can be called aerobic muscles. On the other hand, some of the muscles possess very less quantity of myoglobin and therefore appear pale or whitish. These are the white fibers. Number of mitochondria are also few in them, but the amount of sarcoplasmic reticulum is high. They depend on an anaerobic process for energy. Skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle consists of a framework of bones and a few cartilages. This system has a significant role in movement shown by the body. Imagine chewing food without jaw bones and walking around without the limb bones. Bone and cartilage are specialized connective tissues. The former has a very hard matrix due to the calcium salts in it, and the latter has slightly pliable matrix due to the contractin salts. In human beings, this system it is made up of 206 bones and few cartilages. It is grouped into two principal divisions, the axial and the appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton comprises 80 bones distributed along the main axis of the body. The skull, vertebral column, sternum, and the ribs constitute the axial skeleton. The skull is composed of two sets of bones, cranial and facial. That totals of 22 bones. Cranial bones are 18 in number. They form the hard protective outer covering, cranium for the brain. The facial region is made up of 14 skeletal elements which form the front part of the skull. A single U-shaped bone called hyoid it is present at the base of the buccal cavity and is also included in the skull. Each middle ear contains three tiny bones, malleus, incus, and stapes, collectively called ear ossicles. The skull region articulates with the superior region of the vertebral column with the help of two occipital condyles. Our vertebral column is formed by 26 serially arranged units called vertebra and is dorsally placed. It extends from the base of the skull and constitutes the main framework of the trunk. Each vertebra has a central hollow portion through which the spinal cord passes. First vertebra is the atlas and it articulates with the occipital condyles. The vertebral column is differentiated into cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral and coccygeal regions starting from the skull. The number of cervical vertebrae are 7 in almost all mammals including human beings. Vertebral column protects the spinal cord, supports the head and serves as a point of attachment for the ribs and musculature of the back. Sternum is a flat bone on the vertebral midline of thorax. There are 12 pairs of ribs. Each rib is a thin flat bone connected dorsally to the vertebral column and ventrally to the sternum. It has two articulation surfaces on its dorsal end and is hence called bicephalic. For 7 pairs of ribs called true limbs, dorsally they are attached to the thoracic vertebra and ventrally connected to the sternum with the help of hyaline cartilage. 8, 9, 10 pair of ribs do not articulate directly with the sternum but join the 7th rib with the help of hyaline cartilage. These are called vertebrochondral ribs. Last 2 pairs of ribs are not connected ventrally and are therefore called floating ribs. Thoracic vertebra, ribs and sternum together form the rib cage. The bones of the limbs along with the girdles constitute the appendicular skeleton. Each limb is made up of 30 bones. The bones on the hand are humerus, radius and ulna. Carpals, wrist bone 8 in number. Metacarpals, palm bones 5 in number. Phalanges, digits 14 in number. Femur, tibia and tibula, tarsus, metatarsus 5 in number. Phalanges, digits 14 in number are the bones of the legs. Cup-shaped bone called patella cover the knee ventrally. Pectoral and pelvic girdle bones helps in the articulation of the upper and the lower limbs respectively with the axial skeleton. Each girdle is formed of two halves. Each half of the pectoral girdle consists of clavicle and a scapula. Scapula is a large triangular flat bone situated in the dorsal part of the thorax between the second and the seventh ribs. The dorsal flat triangular body of scapula has a slightly elevated ridge called the spine, which products a flat expanded process called the acromion. The clavicle articulates with this. Below the acromion is a depression called the glenoid cavity, which articulates with the head of the humerus to form the shoulder joint. Each clavicle, it is a long, slender bone with two curvatures. This bone is commonly called the collar bone. Pelvic girdle consisted of two coaxial bones. Each coaxial bone is formed by the fusion of three bones, ilium, ischium and pubis. At the end of the fusion of the above bones is a cavity called acetabulum to which the thigh bone articulates. The two halves of the pelvic girdle meet ventrally to form the pubic symphysis containing fibrous cartilage. Joints. Joints are essential for all type of movements involving the bony parts of the body. Locomotory movements are no exception to this. Joints are points of contact between bones or between bones and cartilages. Force generated by the muscles is used to carry out movement through joints, where the joint acts as a fulcrum. The movability of these joints vary depending on different factors. Joints have been classified into three major structural forms, namely fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial. Fibrous joints do not allow any movement. This type of joint is shown by the flat skull bones, which fuse end to end with the help of dense fibrous connective tissues in the form of sutures to form the cranium. In cartilaginous joints, this bone will involved are joined together with the help of cartilage. The joint between the adjacent vertebrae in the vertebral column is of the pattern and permits limited movements. Synovial joints are characterized by the presence of a fluid-filled synovial cavity between the articulating surface of the two bones. Such an arrangement allows considerable movement. The joints help in locomotion and many other movements. Ball and socket joint between humerus and pectoral girdle, hinge joint, pivot joint, gliding joint, and saddle joint are some examples. Disorders of muscular and skeletal system. Myasthenia gravis, autoimmune disorder affecting neuromuscular junction, leading to fatigue, weakening, and paralysis of skeletal muscle. Muscular dystrophy, progressive degeneration of skeletal muscle, mostly due to genetic disorder. Tetany, it is rapid spasm in muscle due to low calcium in body fluid. Arthritis, inflammation of joints. Osteoporosis, age-related disorder characterized by decreased bone mass and increased status, change of structures, chance of structures, fractures. Decreased levels of estrogen in a common cause. Gout, inflammation of joints due to the accumulation of uric acid crystals. So that's all about this chapter. If you are interested, please do like, share and subscribe my channel. Okay, thank you.